Okay, on this problem, this looks really weird. What's going on in this section is they're showing you all kinds of ways that you can write functions. This right here is the same thing as writing y equal 5x plus 1. You're not going to see this very often, but the book gives you a couple of them just to mess with you a little bit. More often, another way they might write it is to call the function, we're going to give it a label, we're going to call it the g function. And the reason they do that is if you look down at problems number 41 and 43, sometimes they might want to give you more than one function at a time, and they got to give each function a different letter so you'll know which one they're talking about. So this weird labeling here is the same thing as saying y equal 5x plus 1, and they might even write it as g of x equal 5x plus 1. And the only reason I picked g is because they used a g there. They're saying we're going to call the function g. You're going to plug an x in, and so that's why they write g of x. If you don't like looking at it, you can just change it to y equal 5x plus 1. All you're doing here, they're giving you a list. Remember, domain means your x's. They're giving you a list of x's to plug in, and they want to know the y's that go with those x's, and the y's that go with those x's are known as our range. So we're going to plug each one of those into the equation, find the y's, and then list the y's up there in the range. So the first one we're supposed to plug in was x is negative 1. Okay, so 5 times negative 1 is negative 5, plus 1 is negative 4. So I'll put that up in my range. That's just a list of the y values that go with those x values. The next one that they want us to plug in is x is 0. So y equal 5 times 0 plus 1. Well, 5 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. So when I plug in x is equal to 0, I get a y of 1. I could write it as a point. They're just having us write it as a list. This point over here would have been x is negative 1, y is negative 4, because when I plugged in negative 1, I got negative 4 out. Okay, and then the last one they want me to plug in is the value 1, so I'll do that one in green. Again, I can rewrite this as y is 5x plus 1. To find the y that goes with x is 1, I can plug in 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So when I plugged in 1, x is 1, I got the y of 6. I am just listing my y's up here and calling it the range, because range just means your y values. Okay, you did this stuff in 7th grade when you evaluated expressions. You plugged something in and you found out what it was equal to. And we're doing it again now. We're just doing it in function form. So all these things that you see in problems 1 through 9, if you replace all those weird-looking things with, like, for instance, I won't work through another one here just because I'm trying to get to some other things. But let me just show you what they might look like. They have G dot dot on number 5, G dot dot A to 4A squared minus 1. All that means is this is representing your y value. And if you don't like A's, you could change your A's to X values. You could just say it's this, okay? Basically, they're telling you on number 5, your domain, what are you going to plug in? I changed the A to an X because usually we plug in X's. If you don't want to change it and you want to leave it as an A, that's fine. But the things you plug in are your domain, okay? So whether you call it an A or you change it to X, your domain are the things you're going to plug in, and they're telling you to plug in negative 1, 0, 1. So you'll take turns putting those numbers in this equation over here, and the answers you get out, you will list in your range, okay? So that's what you're doing on those problems. On the next page, again, you can rewrite those things if you want to. I'm going to look at number 13. They tell us f of x is equal to 5x minus 9. Now, f of x equal 5x minus 9, when you see f of x, it's the same thing as y. Okay? G of x is the same thing as y. Again, they can call y a lot of different things. It's just what you get out when you plug something in. Now, the reason they use this f of x notation is this. If you look at A, when you see that they say f of 3, when you use this notation, the thing they put in parentheses is the x they want you to plug in. Okay, so if they say find f of 3, I'm supposed to go take that 5x minus 9 and plug 3 in. And I can actually say that this is equal to 5x minus 9, but plug in 3. 15 minus 9 is 6. So what is f of 3? It is 6. That's what it's equal to. Let's take the function, plug in 3. And again, what did I just do? Well, I plugged in x is 3, and I got out a y value of 6. So that's how we get points from functions. They say they also want you to plug in on B, f of negative 3, the fact that they put, hi. Okay, so with this notation, what they're telling you to do is plug in x equal negative 3. So you go say, okay, here's my equation. Remember, this is the same thing as saying y. It's just telling me specifically, hey, plug in negative 3 in there. It's kind of a nice, handy notation. So I'm just going to plug in negative 3 here. That would be a negative 15 minus 9 is a negative 24. So f of negative 3 is negative 24, and what that means is if I plugged in negative 3 as an x, I get a negative 24 out as a y. So that's what you're doing in there. That's what all that funky notation means. Now for number 29, they give you a function and they ask you to do two things. And what we did in class is just cut this down to doing 29 and 31, and that's enough for now, just because we did another one in class together, but I'll just tell you to skip it. Only do the B part on those. Do the A part on the ones that are assigned. And again, you can cut some out. If you're getting the gist of this, you can cut some out and just do 29 and 31 part B, but do A on the rest of it, and then you can even cut a few of those out. The A part is telling you to find f of 0, and all that means is take that function up there, 3x minus 12, that equation, and plug in 0, okay? So 3 times 0 is 0, minus 12 is negative 12. So when I plugged in x is 0, I got negative 12. That's what that means. My answer is negative 12. Now on the B part, it's different. We plugged in x equals 0. Plugging in x equals 0 is easy, but what if you plug in y equals 0? What if I wrote this as y equals 3x minus 12, and they say solve f of x equals 0? Well, f of x is the same thing as y. So what they're telling you to do is plug in 0 for y. Well, you can do it. It's just a little more work, right? Then you'd have to solve for x. You'd have to add 12 to both sides. You get 3x equal 12. Come up here. You need to divide both sides by 3 to get the x by itself. And then the answer would be x equal 4. So it's not, if I plug an x in, it's really easy. If I plug a y in, I actually have to solve to find the x. That's why even in your calculators, your calculator won't let you go to a table and plug a y in and get an x out. It always wants you to plug x's in, or if you look at a table, it has all the different x's, and then it'll plug those x in to get your y's out. So that's what you're doing on 29 and 31. Those in there, and again, do the A part on all those, and maybe do the B part on just 2 of them if you're at home and you're watching this video because you were absent. So why do we, one of the reasons we have that funky notation like the f of x is so they can tell us numbers to plug in. But another reason that we have it is sometimes we might have 2 equations going on. So if you look down at 41, it says a half of g of x. So that means they want me to find, a half of g of 6. So what this means is they want me to go find whatever g of 6 is and plug it in here and multiply it by a half. Well, what is g of 6? Okay, what this is telling me is go get the function that has the g on it. This is this one over here. So it's negative x squared, okay? But they want me to plug in this 6 for x. So now careful, the square only goes with the 6. It doesn't go with the negative. If they wanted it to go with the negative, they would have put the negative x in parentheses. This becomes a negative 36. So g of 6 is equal to negative 36. I'm going to replace all that here with a negative 36. And now a half times a negative 36 is a negative 18. So that's our answer to 41. On 43, they want you to do something different. And again, we have the same 2 equations. F of x is 3x plus 4. G of x is negative x squared. And on 43, they want you to say f of 1 plus g of 1. So I have to do, I'm going to take 2 values and add them together, but I got to go find the values first. What is this f of 1? Oh, it's telling me go get the f function. It's this one right here. It's different than 41, isn't it? Go write it down and then plug in this 1 for x. So it's 3 times 1 plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. Oh, f of 1 is 7. That's what I'm going to put here. This is 7, okay? Now the g of 1, I'll work it in blue. What is g of 1? That's telling me go get the g function. Well, it's negative x squared. It's this function right here. and plug in 1 for x, okay? So again, I'm only plugging in, the square's only going to go with a 1 because it's attached to the x only. So 1 squared is 1, but there's a negative out in front of it. So I'm going to add in a negative 1 because g of 1 is negative 1. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is say what's 7 plus negative 1? It is 6. So the answer to 43 is 6. Part of the reasons we have different ways to write equations is so that we can sometimes have several of them and call them different letters, and then we know which function we're talking about.